Hello and welcome to episode 107 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're a source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about MTG, in particular the online client MTG Arena.
That's right. In this episode, we have lots to talk about. There is a lot of things happening in Magic right now, as well as a bunch of old gripes and grievances I think we have with just what arena is. So normally we try to keep things very, I don't know, chipper or positive, I guess what it is. Maybe not so much this week. Maybe we got some bad things to say. But first, each week we both bring a beer. We drink Jeff's, then drink mine, rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic, and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right. This week I'm excited to bring something called Drifter. And I can finally show what Mad Tom, the character, looks like.
Oh, is this Mad Tom still? Is it always Mad Tom?
I think their IPAs are all Mad Tom.
Okay, that makes sense.
And his various explorations. I could be wrong about that, but basically this is their hazy pale ale. So I've talked about Mad Tom before. They do a few different variations on a pale ale now. Mad Tom's like the classic West Coast. This is their hazy pale ale, and a few weeks ago we tried another one. I think was like a juicy kind of version.
Right.
So I'm excited to give this one a try. Has some big brothers to live up to here. So
yeah, we'll see. Yes, I'm very interested. And you're right, I did read the back. It does talk about our friend Mad Tom is in the arid desert. So very exciting. Let's try it. Here we go.
Oops.
Oh boy, we have some Magic news. This weekend is the Arena Championship #2.
Wow.
Yeah. Coming back to this, it's been a while, and the formats are all will be one draft as well as historic, and then it's a top 8 is historic as well. We're going to talk a bit more about that next week because it will have happened, so we can tell you what's going on, but more about historic this week. We will get into that. However, new kid on the block, Shadows over Innistrad, comes out next week. And they're doing something really cool with the draft format, actually. So if you don't know these remastered sets, this is Shadows block pushed into 2. Both of the sets, Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon, kind of smushed into one draftable set. So they take out all the vanilla creatures and I guess the commons they think nobody cares about, as well as maybe some rares people don't care about. And then we draft them, and you can now. The big thing is that a bunch of new cards are coming to explore. However, Jeff, I'm sure you've seen they will be introducing some more cards to that draft. Basically, what's happening is that there's going to be an extra, like instead of a bonus sheet where they have like the extra sheet of cards, like in Brothers War, it was the retro artifacts. Instead of that, they are taking cards from the first Innistrad block, and those will be the bonus sheet. However, because this isn't a paper product, the bonus sheet will change every week. So they have 4 different kind of themes for each one of them. So each week when you draft the set, the bonus sheet will change. So it'll like just slightly give a little, I don't know, hint of a different feel, I think. The reason I'm talking about this more is well, there's 2 big reasons, but we have dealt with Wizards trying to change draft formats in the past, specifically with alchemy cards and rebalancing cards. And this is a different way of doing that. So initially, Jeff, what do you think about this? It's like a rotating bonus sheet. It's the flavor of the week.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. This won't change the draft format much. Like I guess it depends a little bit, but for the most part, I don't see it changing it that much. If you think to some of those old sets, if you just remove the special cards, it's mostly the same format. You just kind of get hosed by a random crazy card less. The fact that it's a remastered set makes it a bit different because the remastered set was, I remember with Amonkhet, it was already a bit wonky because it was like, well, it's a draft format, but there are 8 rats in the format. So you have like a pretty high likelihood of getting wrath. So it's the first limited format ever where you were actually supposed to play around sweepers with some amount of consistency. So they're already weird. So, and everything's kind of already out the door. But my guess is this, if you just draft every week, like, it's not like starting fresh every week. You're still
Mhm.
drafting mostly the same format. Your skills carry over. Um, it just makes it a bit more fun because there's some new cards you can collect. If you're like not interested in one week's set, but you're super interested in the next week's set. For people who are trying to get those cards, it's really cool to do it this way. But B, it's like sometimes you're just going to play against a rare a couple of times. You're going to be like, I don't want to ever play against this card again. And you don't have to if you wait a
Mhm.
week. So that part will be, that's what I'm most looking forward to for me. It's like, I know there's going to be some dumb rare that I see a disproportionate number of times. And then I'll just be like waving the victory flag when I don't have to see it anymore.
Yeah, I think that rare might be Grizzlebrand, but
It's an early front runner for the rare that I lose to an obnoxious number of times.
yeah. And luckily, it'll just be there for that 1 week. Um, so again, the obviously the Shadows and the Eldritch Moon cards will be coming to Explorer. That bonus sheet will be going to Historic. Um,
Oh, one thing I wanted to ask, do you think we're getting like the classic Liliana of the Veil art then?
that is interesting. I actually don't know. So the sheet is out. You can look at all the cards and
Oh,
see what's in it. So there's no real surprises. You can look ahead, and Liliana of the Veil is not on the sheet, but I think that I could see them wanting to give that out as a card style, as a special thing that we don't know about. Not something that you would draft, but like a daily deal or a special, probably a special promotion where you could like buy it because with real money would probably what
right.
they'd
So
want
like
to
a
do.
card style instead of
Hmm.
a separate version of the card.
Yeah, I guess they don't really do that specifically. So I think the likelihood of us getting it is very low,
Yeah.
but I could see people being really excited about that. So I also know Wizards wants to get money any way they can. So um, I I do think this is interesting. We've talked about draft formats changing and our era. Obviously, back when there was a block system, the draft format would change with the whole set coming into it. We don't get that anymore. We just get um,
Bummer.
like I don't know, 3 weeks to a month after the set comes out, they rebalance some cards. They did, or 6 months, where they
Oh, yeah, I was
rebalanced.
gonna say
They rebalanced Streets of New Capenna in like October,
that was
and
so weird.
it was so weird being like, "Hey, we fixed it. It's different." Also, there's some alchemy cards, and that did not go over super well, I don't think. And since then, they have
Can't
done,
imagine.
yeah, they do like alchemy drafts where when the alchemy cards come out, you can play the draft format with them to collect them. And almost every time, I feel like I've heard people say that they've they've uh, chosen to do that event on accident and didn't realize that it was alchemy until it was too late, and they tend to be quite frustrated by that. So I have high hopes. I'm usually pretty excited about new things, and this idea of a draft format with a rotating bonus sheet is much more interesting to me than trying
Mhm.
to fix a draft format, or just release it again, but with new digital only cards. Not as exciting to me. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it'll be cool. The last thing I did want to say about this is that, and why I'm talking about Shadows over Innistrad Remastered so much, is because it's actually going to be important. So, the Arena Open, the next one that's coming up is April 1st and 2nd, which will be Shadows Remastered, sealed, and draft, and specifically the like fatal flashback, uh, what they're calling that. weeks thing. So you only have like a couple days to practice with that specific bonus sheet, and there'll be flashback cards, which would be really cool for the Arena Open, but then it will kind of go away. So luckily they are doing the same thing where we're getting a midweek magic where there's like a phantom version. So we get to, it'll be the 3 days right before the Arena Open, basically. So that's great. Awesome. Really happy for all that stuff. So should be,
Yeah, sounds fun.
Should be pretty sweet. All right, more things. The qualifier weekend is April 8th and 9th. That will be Explorer. Thank God we can finally talk about Explorer with a brand new, all the Shadows cards will be in there too. So that's going to shake up that format quite a bit. Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the qualifier weekend format isn't Streets of New Capenna Limited. I guess we'll take Explorer. I was really expecting them to take a third stab at Streets of New Capenna Limited.
Hey, so we didn't do it right the other time, but we finally figured it out. We balanced the families.
We perfected it.
Yeah, the Riveteers are actually playable. We swear. Anyway, gosh. But speaking about new cards and old cards, we had some more spoilers today. Jeez, so many spoilers. So at this moment, we have spoilers for Shadows of Innistrad Remastered. We have spoilers for like the Alchemy cards were coming out for Phyrexia. We have March of the Machine spoilers are coming out. And then we also had some cards from Aftermath, which is the little set after March of the Machines. And now we have the Lord of the Rings spoilers are coming out. And that doesn't come out till June.
And we all know how much you love spoilers and just wish spoilers were eternal. So they've granted that wish.
They have. And this is going to be part of my grievances for the whole episode. And I'm going to come back to this every time because I don't like reading stuff and having to read so many cards and like really deciding like, I'm just going to look at the art until I actually have to play against this card. I'm not going to read it because it just doesn't matter. I'm going to think about it for a second and then be like, wait, I don't even play this format. Or like Lord of the Rings cards are only in Historic. So I'm like, I'll deal with it, whichever ones are in Historic. But the art is really cool. I'll look at all the art. So, and if I can draft that format and when that comes out, that's going to be really awesome. I'm very excited for the time I get to draft it. It is really hard to look at them now. With another set coming up in a month, and it's just it's forever, man. It's just it's so much stuff on me. Anyway, I know I'm beating a dead horse with that because I think everybody feels that way. So I'm not the only person. This isn't like I'm not special by thinking that there's too many cards coming out, but I think
other people are like, yes, someone else agrees that reading sucks.
It's like everyone talks about there's too many cards, but nobody says that reading sucks. Yeah.
What we do is we just lose to a card enough times in enough different circumstances to figure out what it probably does.
Yeah, I've never read a lot of these cards. Like, I think it does this. It like, it draws them a card sometimes, and then if not, they get like a treasure or something. I don't really know, but I usually don't kill it because it doesn't seem good enough. Yeah, that was my experience playing Historic this last week. With some of those cards, I'm like, I'm not even going to bother reading this. I'm just going to attack you.
Rita's just going to tell me how much power this fucking thing has.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, man. All right. Now that I just had like the monumental magic news, Jeff, I want to pass it over to you and let you introduce what we're basically going to be talking about for the episode, which is our opinions about stuff. I'm excited. I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly. You already mentioned it. He hit the nail on the head. It's essentially an airing of grievances. We felt with the Arena Championship 2 coming up this weekend, the formats being announced as one draft and Historic, we wanted to complain a little bit.
Yeah.
We had every intention of going and playing a ton of Historic, really boning up and giving you guys the lowdown on what Historic is like. You did a little bit of it. I couldn't. I not only didn't really have time, but also couldn't bring myself to play
To play
Historic after
Historic.
reading some of the like metagame guides and stuff. And I was just like, I don't want to play this. I want to play Explorer or Standard or
Or
One Draft.
draft.
So
Yeah.
quickly start there. One Draft, pretty cool. I'll probably try to watch some of that if possible. I don't care what anyone says. I still like this format. I think it's still fun.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're saying it's cool and has changed, which is cool, then I care what they say. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like that. But I'm honestly probably not going to tune in too much for the historic parts for reasons that we will get to.
Yeah. I did play a bit of Historic. Because yeah, it's been a
Because you
long
had all the
time.
auras cards.
Yeah, well, I looked and saw that Auras is still a deck you can play, and if it was, I was
Which,
gonna
which is
play
my
it.
number one grievance with historic, but go ahead.
Which if Auras was not playable, then I would have just probably not played at all. I ended up playing a good amount. I think I played like 4 events with it, and I went 4-1 every time. I was really mad. I could never get the fifth. I would always lose at like the winning end to something
That's
dumb.
been me in standard, man. 4-0,
Yeah,
4-1 so many times. Like there's a few in a row for sure, but it's definitely like 6 of 7 or something. It just keeps
yeah.
happening to me.
At least like I do think the 4041 it sucks, but it is much better than the
Oh yeah.
0141.
Yeah.
0141 really sucks because then
Oh
you're
one
just
four
like,
one is super rare because I'm so soul crushed by the 01 that it's unlikely I'm gonna like win out from there. And
yeah, because you're like, why do I even like this game doesn't even matter? Like, whatever, I gotta get
exactly.
like
Yeah. I'll
one
just do
extra
this,
pack.
whatever. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
get through it.
yeah, so I can start over because I feel bad resigning because I don't want to just
Hmm.
like leave gems and packs on the table, but at the same time, like, I don't really know. Um, but Ors is sweet, and I'm really excited for the rest of the Ors cards to come to Explore, so I can play Benton Madsen's list and continue to do that, whether it's good or bad. Just because I love Light Paws and I love all these. Well, I really want a hexproof creature, but yeah, it's gonna be great. That is one thing. So with Shadows Remastered, I did see that Invisible Stalker is coming to Historic, which
God.
I mean, I want a 1-drop that has a hexproof, but a 2-drop hexproof unblockable. That sounds pretty good. So, um, I might try to shove that into that deck. But anyway, um, I was actually a bit surprised with Explorer that it didn't have nearly as many alchemy cards as I thought. I know everyone complains about the alchemy cards, myself included. Um, folks, if you haven't listened to us, we really gave alchemy a shot. Like, Jeff, we really fucking tried. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, we were like trying to be ahead of the curve. Everybody hated it at first. We're like, no, it's gonna be good. Just stick with it. Like, it's a
Yeah.
cool idea. It's a
I
really cool
predicted
idea.
that in like 6 months it'd be my favorite format or something.
Yeah.
Uh, just one of my many, many poor predictions on this show.
Yeah. Well, instead of that, Alchemy came out, and then 6 months later, they introduced Explorer, which is actually one of your
Yeah,
favorite formats.
maybe
So,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So yeah, you've detoured us into alchemy because historic has alchemy cards and people are complaining. So let's complain about alchemy first.
Let's do it.
Yeah. My main grievance with alchemy is that it's just not what they promised.
Not
And so
even.
this is to our credit a little bit. When we were defending it, we were young and naive, and we thought that when Wizards said that they were going to do something and handle something a certain way, that meant they were going to do that thing and handle that thing a certain way.
Yeah.
No,
No.
we've had enough experience to know that that wasn't the case. But we're fooled every time, Zach. We're optimists, and
I
so
know. The
we
glass
look
is
at
always
this.
half full of beer.
There you go, right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but
Oh,
they promised us a format that would be evolving mainly because they would be changing cards that were too powerful, reducing their power level a bit, and boosting up cards that weren't powerful enough. That was the promise. Now, they also said they would inject some other cards. Like I don't think we ever thought that wasn't going to be the case, that there would be some alchemy only injections, or if we did, it was for a very short time.
we no no
It wouldn't
we
exist.
we knew that there was gonna they had already come out with like digital only cards, so we knew that those were gonna come out. But the digital only cards that we had got for Historic Horizons were like some planeswalkers and some things that eventually had to get nerfed. But like for the most part, they weren't. They were all
They're
fairly.
mostly
They were
like
tame.
cool, but kind of bad,
Yeah.
which is right where I wanted them to be. They're kind of in
Hmm.
that like, inspiring junk rare category where it's like
Hmm.
it's not inconceivable that you could play with this and be successful, but you're making it harder on yourself
Hmm.
because it's cool. All the stuff that I'm attracted to. It's like, man, this is really powerful if you pair it with like four other cards.
Hmm.
And then it's almost as good as like this one card is on its own that other people are playing.
Yeah.
Um, but what happened was it's just a format where they injected all of these powerful cards that completely dominate the format and they don't even fucking change anything anymore. I'm looking at the tier list to get ready. Oh, what's Alchemy looking like? Um, just out of curiosity. I love that Rakdos Anvil, tier
Hmm.
one, like S tier deck. I go in, oh, I see four Fable of the Mirror Breaker,
Hmm.
unchanged. Four Invoke Despair, unchanged. Like these cards have literally been dominating standard for at least a year now.
Hmm.
No change at all. And they're four ofs, both of them in the best deck in this format too. And it's like, well, this is literally the only thing you said you would do. You would say, "Oh, this card's too good." In Alchemy, we feel okay changing it because people could still use their busted copies in Standard. They could still use them in Explore, so we don't mind nerfing Fable of the Mirror Break. If these cards aren't like up for that after this long, what the hell is? Like this format is just not what you said it was.
Yeah.
Instead, I look and I see Crucius, Titan of the Waves. Like, what the fuck is this card? It's like a 3/3 for three that on your end step, you convert your crappiest card into a much better card and create a treasure token.
Yeah, I'm glad that you specifically talked
What is
about this card
this?
because this card's a piece it's a fucking piece of work is what this card is. Like
And
it's it's a free discard thing that happens every end step. And the thing about discarding cards is usually like you're looking for either a land or a spell. This guarantees you're getting a type of spell that you're interested in and gives you a land, kind of. It's like,
right,
come
gives you the
on.
mana.
What
And
the
it's on end step, so this comes down and just fucking
and
does it.
yeah,
So it
and then
ramps you, by the way, it just ramps you.
yeah.
What is that?
The first time I had to deal with this card, they immediately discarded like the dragon engine, and so it's like, okay, so you're gonna unearth this fucking thing, and it's
Love
like,
it, but
yeah,
I have an issue with this card still.
but like, what? Like, this is not. This is just powerful. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
not really interesting.
It's like a
Like,
random pirate. No, it's not. And so now if I want to go play this deck, oh, I love Anvil. Maybe it gives me a different experience than in standard, or it's a little
mhm,
better positioned because of the different cards. No, I still need my four Fables and my four Invoke Despairs. Now I need four Sanguine Brush Strokes as well. And I
mhm.
also need four of this fucking Mythic Crucius, which doesn't even really synergize with this deck other than it makes a treasure token. But it's just so good in these colors that you have to play it. Like
Yeah,
it's just like a second Fable, but it's mythic. So now you need like anytime you're playing red, you might as well play black and this card and
yeah,
Fable, and it just like builds your deck for you, and you're just like, what's happening?
yeah. And so, like I do I want to talk about this card, but I also do want to go back and say like rebalancing cards is something that I am interested in because there's always the thing of like we have to ban something or restrict it really, which they only do in vintage. But um, being able to say, hey, we did make a design mistake. This is actually what it probably should have been, and then does that work or not? That was something I was interested in, having a format that was like different. You could only do that in digital because in paper you'd have to recall all the cards or like make sure everyone knows, which is a pain in the ass, like the companion mechanic. But
Mm-hmm.
like if they're not doing that, it's been a year since Kamigawa came out. Like, why are these cards like we knew after the first championship where they're using Fable that oh shit, that card's really good. And it's been
Right.
great since. And so I just don't understand what the like, why are we putting so many resources into designing more cards constantly? Like, we have more sets than ever. We're getting extra new little sets after sets, which is fine. It's kind of interesting, but like, we're getting universes beyond sets. We're getting new commander decks and everything. Like, these don't really affect Arena, but it's like there's so many resources in designing new cards. Why do we need more designed cards? Why don't we just redesign the ones we already have to make them usable? Like, isn't that the point? And every time they do a swath of rebalances, it's a bunch of like commons and uncommons that are like elves or some stupid thing. Like, nobody cares. Like, why don't you take the really interesting rare or mythic that we want to make work and make it work instead of just like, oh, now elves has some cheaper elves. Like, okay.
Yeah. Or like we changed this draft format that was
Yeah.
really old. Yeah, and like one time they did it once where they buffed dungeon delving
Yes.
as a mechanic, and that deck actually performed well in like a
Mhm.
competitive environment after that. Now it turned out to be kind of a flash in the pan, but still, like, that's a cool mechanic that was mostly relegated to limited play. It wasn't, there just weren't enough cards, or the cards weren't quite powerful enough for standard. And Alchemy came in and was like, well, hey, we can take a stab at that. We can make
Yeah.
this, have 2 power, and make this
And
have
that
3
and that
toughness.
like literally changed like the whole thing. Like, literally
Yeah.
getting like one creature gets like an extra power and it like makes
Yep.
the deck, you know?
Yeah. And
So,
that's when I was like, wow, Alchemy can be so cool. Like, that was at the, near the start of the format. And I was like, that's awesome.
right. And that, I think that might have been one of the first swaths of their like design, their rebalances, was like, that was one of them. And that was
Mhm.
super cool. Now, I think that I think the amount of cards that need to be rebalanced needs to be smaller,
Yeah.
because the point is that you want, in my opinion, the cards that seem cool should be buffed, and the ones that are overpowered should be nerfed. But they should only be so many changes. When they do these
Right.
big things where there's like 45 card, maybe not 45, but like 30. 30 is a lot. 30 is a lot of cards to learn.
A lot
Like
of cards to change. Yeah.
like and when they give like this article that's like, hey, here's 30 cards we're changing, and they're all kind of like do nothing whatevers, like,
Yeah.
you're teaching me that like I should
Confusing.
I should not read this until I see it on the battlefield, or like I really
Right.
shouldn't be building with this, because I already had to learn the card once, and you're not changing ones that matter. Like,
Yeah.
I I can't. I don't understand why they're putting resources into. I mean, I never know why they put resources into certain things, but like, the just pushing design into this space just so they can be closer to Runeterra and like Hearthstone, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with the like digital only idea of stuff, but when their designs are like, here's a card that tutors a real Magic card. It's like, one of them I was looking up. It's one of them's literally like 2 green X, and it's like tutor Morrowind and then some Llanowar elves. I was like, well, those are just fucking Magic cards. Like, what is
Yeah.
this card? Okay. Like, and most of it's like draw a type of card from your deck, or things like that. And it's just, I don't know. None of it's interesting. I just
Yeah. Or the ones that are interesting aren't good, so you just will never see them.
or the ones that are good are just like that. What's that red removal? It's like all removal spells. It's like the red
Yeah,
it's like one in
exactly.
a red, and it like deals 4 damage, but it like remembers how much extra damage it dealt and then deals it with the next spell you play. So it's like a double removal spell. It's like, great, this is just card advantage. Okay, cool. Like, that's you're giving us card advantage. Okay. In a digital way that's like brutal. I don't know. it it also makes me laugh. Like, there's the one white spell that like exiles a creature and an artifact, and then they go and get one of lesser mana value from their deck and put it on the battlefield. Which, but they have that card that's legal in Historic, but Swords to Plowshares is not legal in Historic. Like, why don't you just play the regular Magic card? Like, just just let them play the card. I don't understand. I it just it's like, no, no, no. Swords to Plowshares you can only play in Historic Brawl. You can't play it in Historic. It's just like, come on. Like, this is the kind of shit that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
And
Uh, it's so weird. And it's just like I don't even looking back, I'm trying to think about how it happened. But we entered that like, the dark times when
mhm,
black was just outrageous. They printed like a few good black cards and then
yeah.
just absolutely refused to do anything about it. Um, and it was just like, but this is the problem with standard is everyone's sick of black mid-range, and then you went ahead and printed outrageous black mid-range cards in alchemy,
In
and then
alchemy.
you're like sticking to your guns on it, like, no, these are fine, they're not overpowered. Like, we're just going to boost up some other card, like random uncommon that never has a chance of doing anything, because it's just going to get discarded. So what doesn't matter what you buff, like it's just going
Yeah.
to get fucking discarded. Um, and it entered that phase, and then they just couldn't dig their way out of that. And I feel like they like leaned into it. We're just like, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to print stupid cards. We're going to fix nonsense, and we're going to devote like we're going to literally put like our junior designers on this and tell them don't change any important cards.
That's basically what it feels like. Where and they're pushing alchemy really hard because all the like um the invite it's like the invite decks, the like the welcome decks or whatever they give to new players. Those are like alchemy decks.
Right.
So I'm sure I actually don't think this is true. I don't know if the hot pocket deck is alchemy,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was. So I
I
and
hear
like
Vivian on the Hunt is a huge staple of the
oh yeah,
format.
super important. Green is playable.
Yeah.
Like hey, standard right now, you can't play green cards. Here's a mono green standard
Yeah.
deck.
Hey man, green
Um,
is playable if you want to just like play a strictly worse version of a better deck, and
that's
you want to play
true.
two other colors with your green
Mhm.
that
That's
are the
true.
best colors.
Yeah, yeah. God. So it's I I just I've tried. I really wanted us to be able to this is kind of I don't know if the beer's getting me to me or I'm just we don't usually rant like this and I'm airing
Yeah.
out so much, but we wanted to be able to champion this format or this idea because there were so many people who weren't. Like we wanted to be the podcast that's like, yes, alchemy, this was a good idea and everyone says it sucks, but it's actually good and we wanted to do that. And then
Yeah.
we just
That's
decided
why it
to
hurts so much, because
yeah,
we supported it, and it turns out the haters were right, man.
I
It is
really
too many fucking wild cards, and
yeah.
they're not going to change the relevant cards.
Mhm.
And that's a
Or
bummer.
yeah, or they're just releasing like there was one thing that this is more of just arena thing, but they are remember when Faithless Looting was like in Strixhaven and it was a rare wild card.
Hmm.
Well, now they're releasing Faithless Looting as like a common or whatever,
Hmm.
and so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, so do we get
Am
those
I
wild
getting the
cards back?
rares back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or what? It feels like this is kind of cheap. So like that kind of stuff is annoying, but like in alchemy, it's just it really I just don't see the way like I understand that like all right, so you said we want to make 30 new cards a set. And so you said it's too wildcard heavy. So we're going to open a draft queue so you can draft the cards. But you don't like the draft format being changed with the alchemy cards in it because people get confused about whatever. So what do we do? It's like I think ultimately it's just don't don't make so many cards or like make just a
Yeah.
handful. Like what if
Don't make
there's
30 new cards every set.
or what if there are card designs that like the in the initial process of like making the set they came across some stuff and was like this doesn't really work right, let's put it in our file that might be good for arena and then take like 5 of those or 10 or whatever, but like it's just hard with 30. It just there's something about that number that's just so many.
And like to me, maybe it's different for people who play alchemy, but the alchemy product feels disconnected from the original set, anyways. Like just the way it's handled. It wouldn't matter to me if the alchemy editions weren't on theme with the set,
Hmm.
because it just feels like a different thing, anyways. And when I play, I'm still getting 300, 200, whatever new cards from that set. I
Hmm.
don't need an additional 30 for alchemy to like, oh yeah, now Now I feel like Alchemy is Midnight Hunt, it's like,
Yeah.
but there's still a whole new set in this format as well. It's not like, just have some cards that are cool designs and just put them out every once in a while.
Mhm. It does seem like, because Midnight Hunt was a good thing to bring up because we did get that one werewolf, Rahilda, that like
Hmm.
made that deck. It's like a good 2-drop werewolf that was like strong. And
Yeah.
so they're like, oh, we can actually be the aggressive deck that we're kind of supposed to be. Um, and that was good. I mean, that card was annoying and it was really strong. But then it's like, oh, the way people play alchemy and the way people buy cards is always power creep. And so let's push all the cards and let's
Yeah.
print a bunch of cards where when you discard cards, you just draw other ones from your deck that are actual like literal like replacements. Oh, you discarded land, here's land. You discarded planeswalker, here's a planeswalker. It's like yeah, it was kind of fun, but then it got really old. And then like once you start
Yeah.
to learn the play patterns, you're like, this is just not it's
I mean,
not
it's inherently a stupid idea because
Mhm.
discarding a card is like a serious drawback. So if you're just saying, don't worry about the discarding, like you could do such busted stuff. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's like, oh, you don't have you just it's just oh, it's like, hey, that rummage thing is actually really good because you're just going to get the same thing or something else you see in your deck. I don't know.
yeah,
It's
like rummaging becomes way better than drawing
the
a card.
like that is crazy. Like it should not be that. We're like, okay, no, it
And
has to. Uh,
think
I,
about the type of card they would put rummage on and the type of card they would put draw a card on.
mhm.
Creature says tap draw a card. That thing's expensive or
Yeah.
has hoops or like
Hmm.
something says tap rummage. I don't know. Maybe it's a 2/1 for 2. That could be a card. So
Hmm.
it's like if you make rummaging better than draw a card, it just throws off the cost calculations on everything
Exactly.
because discarding a card is supposed to be a massive drawback.
Yeah. So, especially before like rummaging, because you have to discard before you draw. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, they always say looting is great because you know what you get to discard, but like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, by the way, you you get to draw a card and then get a card for the one that you discarded. Look at that.
Yeah.
Uh,
All upside, baby.
all upside. Oh my gosh. There's this other card that I know people were hating on. This is one of the alchemy ones. Um, and this is since like one of the Dominaria sets. I can't remember. I think a couple of these actually that we're talking about aren't extremely on theme. Like Crucius is like a pirate, and I think it's
Yeah.
I don't. Is that from Brothers War or is that from Dominaria United? And that's one thing that I kind of like. I don't really know. It's just kind of like he's a pirate. That's a
Right.
magic thing. It's fine. Like
And
it
it
looks
could
like
all just be like, I mean, it shouldn't be this stupid. The card shouldn't be this good for
no
no
that
reason.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just like
But
a random human pirate design that they
mhm.
liked and they threw it out.
Yeah,
It doesn't have
boom.
to be Brothers War themed or
It
whatever.
doesn't. You don't have to wait until Ixalan to release this card. Um,
Right.
but Rusko Clockmaker, this card was making
Okay.
waves. So it's like the Demir Legend. It's like a 4-mana 3/3, and when it enters the battlefield, you get a Midnight Clock on the battlefield. So it's 4 mana for a 3/3, and you get Midnight Clock. And then
Okay.
whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put an hour counter on each permanent you control named Midnight Clock. And then each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's like a spell slinger deck that you like blink the clockmaker to make a ton of midnight clocks, and you just keep drawing your whole deck and like recycling your graveyard and like drawing cards. And it's like a 80 card Yorion pile in a historic. And it's just like I I just like it's like
But
this is wacky and weird, and so and it is annoying that it was pretty strong and that you did have to worry about this card, but like at least like I know people were hating on this, at least this is really weird and interesting, but it's the same thing I was talking about where it's like, hey, here's a card that just gets a regular magic card and then makes that magic card significantly better, and it was already good. So
and what set was this in? Because
Rusko, I think he might have been in the Brothers War. I actually don't remember which one of
Oh yeah, it looks like it's Brothers War.
Yeah, it definitely
Because
wasn't
Midnight Clock was from like friggin' Eldraine.
yeah. And so like they don't always do specific things with the cards that like come with them, but yeah, he was from one of those. But man, I don't know, it was funny looking like
It's
a
such a dumb,
yeah, it's
dumb little card. Okay.
but it was like an issue where you're like blinking this guy and just like putting a million things on your midnight clocks because like uh anyway
And
um
every time you blink him, you get more mana because the Midnight Clock's tapped for mana, right? So it's
yes,
like,
so you get a mana rock and something that ticks
yeah,
up, and then eventually the midnight clocks can like put counters on themselves.
right.
Yeah.
And time twister shit and whatever.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it's yeah
and then
it's
it just in case like you didn't actually have a way to win the game because all you're doing is flickering this and like getting a bunch of midnight clocks and time twistering a bunch of fucking times. This also is just your win con because it drains them, so it'll
yep,
it'll eventually kill them.
exactly,
They couldn't have just removed that last line, like
because you really didn't, because then like at least you have something, you have to find your win condition, which
you have to
these
find a
decks
different way to kill them. I mean, it should be
Mhm.
pretty easy given that you will constantly have 7 cards in hand and like 15 mana, but
Mhm.
at least you need to put another one. I hate win cons that like take control of the game and win the game
Mhm.
themselves. I think the famous one is like the decks that just used to play Teferi, Hero of Dominaria,
And that's it,
and
yeah.
no other way to win. And the whole plan was literally just ultimate it and then draw your deck and exile all their stuff, and then just Teferi -3 himself
Over
until
and
your
over.
opponent decks.
Mhm.
Which is guess what? There were a lot of draws when that was a powerful standard deck. And it was mostly the opponent, one person saying, "Would you like to concede to me?" and the other person saying, "No." And
It's like
hack a win con if you want to get a win and not a draw next time. And
yeah,
then the control player complaining that they're not being honorable or something. Like,
it's just like
I saw so much of that.
which is like I'm so on board with the person that's like, no, you decided to play this deck, I'm gonna let you do the whole thing, like
And
you
I'm not going to stall. I'm going to
mm,
take my allotted amount of time for my turn.
yeah, which
I'm going to
is
draw my card and I'm going to pass.
yeah, I'll play a land that you're gonna exile and or whatever.
And I'll pass the turn to you.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. And if you don't have enough time to finish, the match, then it's not my fault. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
because at least on arena, like because we have the rope and stuff, that can be like an issue for those decks, and so we are even seeing that with what combo decks in historic a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
um, but just literally trying to click your way through your entire deck and you just don't have enough rope to do it.
Yeah.
So I do like on arena we don't have to deal with that where you're complaining about your opponent slow playing or just literally that thing. Also because it's a different type of it feels more like I actually have time. Like if I'm sitting in that situation and like my opponent's not really close to like clocking out and like I'm going to lose, I can concede because I can just get up and do something else or like walk away. If you're at a tournament, like
Right.
I came here just for this tournament. I have nothing better to do. Like what I'm
Just
gonna
going to
go.
wait for the next round. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be over there. So I'm just waiting right now, and I'm gonna probably get a draw because you decided to play this stupid deck.
Yeah.
So
You decided you couldn't put a fucking Windrake in your deck to actually kill me.
yeah, that is a deck I want to see where you just like it's literally just Windrake, and you're just trying to attack them. And you're using
Feels
your
faster than Teferi, that's all I'm saying.
yeah, use your midnight clocks to to draw your Windrake back and play it.
Yeah.
See, there you go. Like this is the kind of stuff we need. Why isn't Alchemy giving us Windrake? I need Stormcrow.
Exactly.
I need
Stormcrow.
why don't we
Yeah, that's
have
better.
like we need a format like this is the stuff we actually need. Like core set vanilla creatures,
Yeah.
Like there's no ETB effects. It's all like that. It's just a bunch of combat tricks or like removal spells and like draw spells and like jockeying for position and like whatever. You
Yeah.
just no ETBs, no
Core set
ETB magic.
limited constructed.
Yeah, or something. Like because I've always liked the idea of like block constructed tournaments, or like, we
Mhm.
have to play with the cards in the set. um but well, obviously now that we don't have blocks, you can't really, um
Yeah.
but unless you decided like, oh, Dominaria, those two sets are a block, like the fall set, they might
Right.
kind of do that for a while. But on Arena, we get it, but it's only for like a couple days, and I never want to build a deck just for that. Like, I think we have one for Innistrad coming up. It's like only Innistrad cards, and so like every Innistrad card you have, you can build a constructed deck out of it, um, which is cool. But like, I don't know. I know that we can't get queues for random bullshit stuff, obviously, but like if things were a bit more consistent, or like it was easier to know, or I don't know.
And I miss the old block structure. I understand why they moved away from it. And I
Hmm.
liked I also used to love the idea of block constructed. Never really got to play in it because I wasn't really old
Around,
enough.
yeah,
You know,
for that,
at the
yeah.
time that I was playing, I wasn't really old enough to participate in constructed events, really.
Hmm.
Um, and now I miss it because I think it's so cool that you would build like constructed decks that actually are about the mechanics in that set, and then when a new set comes out, it changes the dynamics.
Hmm. Or when
And I
you're in,
loved, block draft formats, um, but I get why they were less popular and therefore they're
yeah,
not worth doing.
we talk about this a lot because this nostalgia comes back every time we're not even that old, which is hilarious. Like, we're not even really paper boomers. When you talk about paper boomers who are playing during like alpha, and then like, their
Yeah, yeah.
favorite set was like, I don't know, Urza's Saga. um we're not them. uh but I do have a weird, like, I have a weird homesickness for that time that I was never a part of, and wishing that I could have been playing during the when creatures were terrible and damage was on the
Yeah,
deck, stuff like that.
exactly.
Um, so I kind of miss those things, and I don't know if it's just the. Have you ever seen the movie Midnight in Paris?
No.
It's not fantastic. It's not a great movie, but it does have the concept that like the people in this generation who look back, they're like right now, people who are like, I don't know, our age, be like, man, I wish I was a teenager in the 90s. Like I was growing up then, but I wish that I was like, or I was like 20 at the turn of the century. I
Yeah.
wish I was like 20, 21. That would be so cool. And I could have done the cool 90s grunge thing, and then go. And then in that movie, they go back to that time and then talk to those people who were that age. And they're talking about the 70s or the 60s. They're like,
Right.
oh man, it'd be
Yeah.
so cool. Like, wouldn't it be sweet if we could go back? And then it goes forever and ever and
I love
ever.
how nobody wanted the 80s. Just
Yeah,
no,
just
that's
skip right over
being yeah.
that. But it's that idea that like, if you're the type of person that is nostalgic and wishes for a time that you weren't a part of, no matter what time you're a part of, you're always going to want the other time. Um, just previous to you, it's just a way of being, I guess. And I don't know if I have that personality where I like always wish I was like at born in a different time period or something, because it always seems so much better when you've already seen everything happen.
Right.
That's
Which is part of it, right?
mhm,
Um, for Magic, I definitely have that. And
mhm.
for whatever reason, ever since I was a kid, I've always thought it would have been so cool to play during Mercadian Masks.
Yeah.
No idea why. I saw like a pack of it at the not the grocery store, just at the card store
Yeah.
once when I was a kid, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And everything I've read, everything I've heard was that it was an awful set. Like nobody liked it, and it was a real slog to play. But I just thought it was so cool, and that just like stuck in my brain as like Mercadian Masks. That's the
It's a,
cool set.
it's so
Like I can't
cool.
believe I missed it.
Yeah. Hey, like this is we're not even talking about arena anymore, but like this is what I'm talking about. Mercadian Masks. There we go. We got to set this up. We're gonna proxy a cube, and you just proxy all the Mercadian Mask cards, and then you can have that that draft and be like, yeah, it's
Wow, this is a total nightmare.
yeah. my mana base is fucked and my creatures suck. Like, oh, okay, this is it. Um, I had some like pre-constructed decks from like Invasion and Odyssey, and some of them were pretty rough. Where they're like, this creature is like a 4-mana 1/1 that like can't do very much. And it's like,
Like, why did they make this?
this is bad. Um, so, but anyway, obviously we don't live in that day and age, and we actually get to play Magic on our computer, which is something that would have it would have blown me away when I was a kid, because like my computers could not run Magic Online. So it always felt like a fairy tale. So like literally the fact that I can play Magic on my phone, I would have like shit my pants as a kid, being like, holy fucking shit, that's so cool. So I do try to remind myself of the good things, but there's something about
just saying Mercadian Masks remastered next
time,
arena set. Just saying.
Yeah, what was in that block? Like Mercadian Masks and like was Nemesis with that too? Nemesis and now I want to know.
I don't think so. Yeah.
What was that block? Anyway, I'll probably figure out.
I don't even know. I don't even know. Weatherlight or something. It was old.
We'll have to figure out the block so we can make the cube, obviously, and then we can slowly add the cards in over months, which is when we'll be able to do it.
That's how bad Alchemy is. We get more interested in Mercadian Masks block draft than in playing Alchemy.
Yeah, it is a bit like pulling teeth, especially like you're saying, but it's literally the same good colors and cards. Like, be a different format.
If they just pushed it back towards what was promised, I think it's a little too late now. There are too many like
it's
additional
over.
Cards taking over the format. You could wait like a year or two, print bad shit, and then let stuff rotate, and then just do what you said. Just nerf cards that are too good. That's it. It's all you have to do to make Alchemy super fun is just nerf cards a little bit. Make the fucking 2/2 token for Fable a 2/1. See if that's enough. And they said they'd be liberal, like they weren't waiting for the perfect nerf. They were just going to try stuff, and if it wasn't enough, they'd take action again. Like they promised what they should be doing. Instead, they're just like, no, we're never going to nerf anything. We're just going to print cards that are even better so that you have to play the best cards in Standard and these outrageous cards from this new set.
And that's part of why I like Toxic so much, because it's like, it's almost block constructed with just like, almost all the cards are from like all will be one. And it's a deck that actually works and you can play it and it's different and they're different colors. And like, that's a big fun thing about it. You're like, yeah, take that. Good cards from a year ago. So I just so disappointed. Wizards, you always disappoint me. But you're also like a big reason of why I want to live my life. So it's so hard. It's like I do like new cards and I like new sets, but when there's too many of them, and it feels like your solution for everything is just adding more cards that are stronger and things that excite people, that makes it feel like you're doing all right. And I get that idea, and you see like Gavin Verhey like posting on Twitter, be like, oh, I'm really excited to see what you guys think about this set or whatever. And I know that your entire job is making things for people and you want them to like them. And we do, but like, it's a lot of stuff. And it's not even like, well, Alchemy aside, other things are good, but like the Alchemy cards, just I don't know. Alchemy lovers, please show yourself and say something to us. But like, I don't think it's something that shouldn't ever have happened, but the execution has been just abysmal. Like it's
just not what I wanted.
It's not what I wanted at all. So with our full grievances for actual Alchemy, I do want to talk about Historic, but maybe we should take a break to cool off for a second and then get into a Historic. So Jeff, let's just go to a beer break and then we can come back and start afresh.
Sounds good.
This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over on Patreon.
That's right. You're already supporting the show just by being a listener. But if you want to support the show even more, Well, Patreon is the best way to do that. Plus, you get to vote on your favorite co-host by buying one of us a beer.
Yeah, so that person should probably be me. But you can go vote at patreon.com/arena regulars to give me a good vote and keep Jeff in the dark with his 0 votes so far. Put you
And
on
another thing we
blast.
appreciate is when you give us awesome names for our sweet new brews. I'd love to hear those. Best place to send those to me is on the Arena Regulars Discord channel. Link is in the show notes.
Yeah, it is. And we've got some good names for Jeff's last deck. So go check them out. But with that, Jeff, it is time to
All right. What is this nonsense?
Open another beer. I brought one of your favorites. As always, it's going to be something
I feel
crazy.
like you
What?
can use one of these words in a name of a beer. There's not all 4. This is too many.
No. Because 2 of them kind of, well, they go together. Okay, so this is from Collective Arts. This is their Blueberry Crumble Pastry Sour. So Blueberry Crumble, that's like a thing. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pastry Sour, that's another thing. So it's really just 2 things.
You get one sweet word in the name of your beer.
All right, well, the only word it needed to have was blueberry, and that's why I picked it up, because you know me, I love me some blueberry. So it is 6.5%, and I'm going to crack it. You ready, Jeff? Let's get it.
Ready.
Oh, and of course, a blueberry beer is going to be this beautiful purpley pinky color.
I can see them there.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube, you can check it out. It is. This is what you want in our Arena Regulars mugs. The full treatment right there. Anyway, yeah, this beer. Full disclaimer, I have tried this before. But it's just one of those ones. Sometimes, I like to give you some weird ones, but I like to make sure the ones that I kind of like a little bit before I give them to you. Because I do worry about giving you horrible beers, but you never know. It's also a limited edition, so I had to get a couple, just try it out.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, cheers, Jeff. Purple beer.
Cheers.
All right. We are talking about historic and kind of what it is, since it is a bit confusing. So it is a tournament format, and there was a part of me that was thinking that it was only a tournament format during COVID because everything was online, and it was like the closest thing we had to like it was like the only other format besides standard, and they weren't doing draft. So like you couldn't do standard every tournament, and you could do standard or historic, and that was kind of it. So I think the last Arena Championship was Alchemy, so now they're going to historic, and I'm just wondering, like, when Pioneer comes to Arena, are we not going to just be using Pioneer for all of this instead, and just the other formats won't be tournament formats? Is that a thing? That's what my mind goes to, but I don't know. Jeff, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's super weird. It's a good call out that not everyone might even know or like fully understand what historic is.
That's true. Sorry. Yeah, please explain that.
If you haven't been here the whole time, right, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But essentially, like way back in the day, when Arena was like really first starting, basically what was happening was they were releasing new sets on Arena, but they didn't have a big backlog of sets like they do now. So whatever was in standard was essentially everything on Arena. And people were getting concerned because on Arena you play standard. What's going to happen when the sets rotate? Do I get my wild cards back? Do I get wild cards to replace the standard cards that I can't play anymore, stuff like that. So Historic originally was really just the answer to that. And Historic was, you could play anything that's on Arena in Historic. Now, it got hairy because what happened was one set rotated, or like a one or two. I don't even remember at the time in Arena, but it
it
wasn't even like a full rotation, I don't think, because of the way Arena like lined up.
Yeah, I think what would have happened was because they had Ixalan on it, and so by the time it rotated out, I think it rotated with Eldraine. No, that's not right. Anyway, Ixalan was the oldest one.
Yeah.
But sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going. Keep going.
Anyways, maybe it was a full standard rotation, but I don't think so. For some reason, I get the impression it was literally just like one set or two sets was like out. And so basically, Historic was the same as standard, or some people even claimed it was like, hey, if you're not tired of losing to all the cards you've been losing to in standard and want to keep losing to them, like go play Historic.
Mm-hmm.
So standard was the fresh thing, right? And Historic was just like last previous standard season where you're still losing to Teferi. I guess that's what it was. There's only one new, like standard shrinks. And so Historic is just standard with like one extra set. That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
There's like one
gotcha.
extra set onto what standard would have been before. And so Historic was basically old standard, and nobody wanted to play it because it's like, yeah, I'm tired of losing. The whole point of rotation is I'm tired of losing to these cards, and I don't want to. I'm not going to go opt in to keep losing to them, just because I have that deck. So Wizards was like, I have an idea. We will just throw random cool cards from Magic's history into Historic. We'll give you this ridiculous card here. We'll give you that ridiculous card. And it's basically just evolved along that philosophy ever since, that we're just going to throw ridiculous, crazy stuff into Historic all the time.
Yeah. It started with anthologies that were like, 25 cards at a time, basically. And then they had Jumpstart, which just exploded. Like Muxus came in. And that was also around like when Amonkhet Remastered came in. And then they started doing backlog of stuff. So they were doing Amonkhet Remastered. They did Kaladesh Remastered, and they did a lot of the work for Shadows Remastered at that period of time. They just didn't release the Shadows one until next week. So
they just wanted to make us look bad with our prediction of when it's going to come out,
because we thought it was going to come out before like the Innistrad set or like around that time, because it made a lot of sense, right? Now we're doing a bunch of weird Innistrad stuff because I don't know, it's just so weird. I don't understand. But anyway, so that's what Historic is. It's whatever cards are on Arena. So now, since they introduced alchemy cards and they introduced rebalance cards and all those things, those just kind of are in Historic. I guess, to be fair, the rebalanced ones, I think they did decide to change it so that once they go to Historic, they will on a certain basis decide which ones will be back at their regular power level. But
yeah, I think it might have even been like, if they rotate out of Alchemy, they like convert back, and then in Historic they're now the old.
I don't exactly know. They've talked about it. For the most part, it doesn't really matter because none of those cards really have anything to do with anything.
Right.
But
and since they don't nerf cards in Alchemy anyways, like
it doesn't matter because they just don't do it. So Historic is just like we refer to it as the dumpster fire of Arena. It's just like it's just a food scraps. It's just your compost bin. It's like whatever the fuck is left over, you just throw it in there.
That in there.
Yeah. Yep. Like Historic gets a bunch of weird cards now that we have, like the bonus sheets from Innistrad. So it's like there's a bunch of weird cards. Grizzlebrand and Snapcaster Mage. They're like, here you go. Sure. Well, tell us what happens. Like that's the kind of shit that goes on in Historic. And if you want to deal with that type of stuff, sure, go play Historic. So That is kind of what it is. A lot of people talk about it as if it's like the legacy for Arena, because legacy is the
Right.
same way, where it's just any cards from any supplemental set will be in it, which I think is a fair enough assessment. And it also has a similar complaint pattern of people complaining about some random card from some set that wasn't standard legal that's breaking their format, and they're mad about it.
Yeah.
Like most recently in Legacy, they had to ban some cards from the Commander Legends 2 set because it was breaking the Legacy format. That's the kind of shit that happens in Historic, or will happen. So, um,
Is that most recently, or didn't the legacy banning just happen? Is that
that's
the one? Or
the one that just happened.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a Commander Legends 2 card. So, um, it's just like I I don't play Legacy, and I know a lot of people love it. There are also older players who played for a long time, but like when people talk about Historic being like the legacy of Arena, it doesn't always sound like a great thing to me, because it again just sounds like you're inviting a bunch of shit to just break your format by just like accepting whatever. Obviously, you don't get to choose necessarily what kind of comes into your format, because no one does. Go talk to Modern to know what their feelings are about that, but it's just kind of like a wild west of whatever, and I don't necessarily know how much I like it being like a tournament format that matters, you know. It just
That's the
seems.
thing. And to that point, like I distinctly remember this. You could tell me I'm wrong, because
Mhm.
I like have a feeling it's one of those like memories that you're like, did I make this up or did they really say this? But I remember them saying explicitly it was not going to be a tournament format. They're like, hey, Historic is just meant to be like, you have all these cards on Arena. We're going to throw some fun ones in there. We're not going to worry too much about balancing, and it's not meant to be competitive. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
And then, like you were saying, COVID happened and tournaments had to go online, and Arena was had two formats, well, three, but they weren't ready to really do
Mhm.
draft. Um, so they were like, well, we're either playing standard all the time, and standard was getting a bit of bad press at the time as well, or we're going to have to just say, hey, Historic is a competitive format now. And so I think, like, not only were you saying, oh, because of COVID, Historic's kind of a tournament staple, I think they've even sort of openly just said that, because they said before that, like, oh, Historic's not really meant to be a tournament format. We have Pioneer kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then just the way the cards fell, they're like, well, I guess everyone's playing Historic, and they had to treat it a little more carefully with bans and stuff. And then they're like, fuck it again, and just injected a bunch of crazy powerful cards and like pre-banned Swords to
Well,
Plowshares of all things.
yeah, and that kind of
But
stuff. And to your point, that shows obviously that like they had made all the cards for Strixhaven Archives, or Mystical Archives, with that in mind, being like historical, just they'll get Brainstorm and like a bunch, like, Lightning Bolts and Dark Ritual and stuff, and just be like, here you go, like play with it. And after it becoming a tournament legal thing, they're like, we're gonna have to ban a bunch of those. We were gonna just give you whatever. And this leads to my point that like, if Historic was still like, play whatever Wild West cards you can. Obviously, some ban lists will be important, like, I don't know, Oko and stuff, but like, um, take other cards that are legacy playable cards and like nerf them so you can play them on Historic. And one we've talked
right.
about before, and this is the constructive criticism part of our podcast. I think that if they brought fetch lands to Arena and they were only Historic legal, that would be huge, and that would be really exciting, and people would want to play that. It would also make the format feel very different than Explorer and Pioneer,
Right.
because that's already one of the big reasons why Pioneer is different than Modern and Legacy, is because you don't have fetch for my shock. Like, that's just not a play pattern we have. So
Mm-hmm.
if Historic's already the dumpster fire and like already like Legacy, give us like rebalanced fetch lands. You know,
Yeah,
go back in time and say, hey, if we said that fetch lands cost 2 life instead, does that change things? You know, I think it does.
definitely.
Um,
Makes them
I
twice as bad.
Yeah, exactly. What, this gives me a plains? What the fuck? Flooded Strand, horrible.
Planes cost me no life. I
Yeah,
just play planes.
yeah. Why would I play this? I have Evolving Wilds. Why would I play this? It makes me lose life, and I can't choose any card. Ridiculous.
And like honestly, the biggest pain of fetch lands is literal shuffling.
Hmm.
And on arena, that doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
like this is like the fact that Pioneer doesn't have fetch lands is almost exclusively because of shuffling in paper,
Yeah.
and Arena does it in a second. So like all of those problems go away. Having fetch lands on Arena in Historic would be a really good thing. Like,
And they've already said we're throwing out, fetch lands are the most powerful lands of all time.
mhm.
They've already shown they're willing to, we give you brainstorm, some of the
Yeah,
most powerful cards of all time.
exactly.
So
It's like I don't see why they shouldn't just do that. The fetch lands were in Modern Horizons 2. There are Modern Horizons 2 cards in Historic. Why aren't they? Why don't they just? If they did an anthology of like all the fetch lands, and you had to pay money to like real money to get it, oh my god, like they're going to make a butt ton of money. And also it would probably help Arena in the sense that making Historic as far away from Explorer, which will eventually be Pioneer, is a really good thing for them. So,
mhm.
and making it an interesting format that is powerful if they're going to use it for these tournaments, like I don't really see why they shouldn't do this unless they think, I don't know, makes Fatal Push amazing. I don't know. Like
Come
nah,
on.
it's just not a big deal. There's
You already have the
treasures.
format where Fatal Push is hard to activate, which is Explorer, like
Hmm.
where it's like Fatal Push is okay. I don't know. You
Yeah.
have to be a deck that's geared towards it being good.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously any black deck in modern it's good because
Hmm.
you have the fetch lands.
Yeah. So I think those are the types of things they should be thinking about when they're bringing cards into Historic. Besides, like, a bunch of Innistrad cards, super cool, original Mirrodin cards, maybe things like that would be interesting. But like, take like modular and they already have an affinity deck. What if you took some great busted Mirrodin cards from original Mirrodin and fixed them? See if you can fix them. You know, that's the thing that I'm really interested in. Like, I want to know if, like, not really fixing Skull Clamp because that's an obvious one. That's just like, well, this card, like the
They
fixed
already did
Skull,
that, man.
yeah,
They
it
called it
sucks.
Transmigrant's Crown.
Yeah, it's
How
terrible.
dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you?
yeah. You shouldn't have bought that card, but whatever.
I'll have you know, I played it in a competitive event.
I know. How'd that go?
It
Hmm.
it went, yeah.
Yeah. Um. So anyway, things like that though, like, doesn't that sound really interesting? That makes me excited. I don't know if it's because I'm like
Right.
an enfranchised player, and I don't know. I have a podcast about Magic, and I talk about it and think about it all the time. But I don't know. I
No,
think
it's
it's.
similar to Alchemy, right? Like you're
Mhm.
missing a huge opportunity here to take cards people love that you made a mistake on because you're never gonna get it all right in design, and you're gonna make some big mistakes. And they even tested this, right? They had a little thing where they changed to Fairy and they changed
Mhm.
Oko
Yeah.
and they changed Fire's
Oh,
Dimension or
right.
something,
And
another
they
one. And they let us play with that,
and they never brought
and
him.
everyone was really pumped. And nothing ever came of it.
like yeah, like playing a fixed Oko and being like, oh, sorry, that plus should be a minus, things like that. Yeah, like these are the kinds of things that people are interested in doing, and Historic is one of the only places you could do that. Like, you can't do that anywhere else. Why don't you do those things instead of giving us just busted cards that let you discard and draw better cards and then get treasures for free? Like,
Yeah. And I
this
think
is.
the complaint around that is like people hate Oko. They don't want to play fixed Oko.
Yeah.
They want Oko to be gone forever. And it's like, sure, but that's like Oko was fairly fresh, Teferi was fairly fresh. Also, we're talking about doing it with cards that like people didn't lose to it for years on end on Arena. Like
Mm-hmm.
take an old card that,
Yeah.
you know, people loved and but was just a little too good. Like, you know, like you said, we have Affinity. What kind of old Affinity cards
Could we
can we
play?
reprint that, you know, they're not quite as good as Affinity was because Affinity is like a famous design mistake.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if we just try to fix something, right?
Yeah.
What if we take a second crack at Arcbound Ravager? You know, like doesn't have to be quite as good as it is.
Yeah. Think like that's the kind of stuff. Like Thoughtcast shouldn't cost one. Like maybe it's
It, you know,
it's like two blue or something like that. Like
no, it should cost one and also come with a 2/2 flying attached to it.
so this is where I want Historic to move. Like Magic has so many awesome cards from its history, and there are so many of them that either were too busted or just barely didn't make it. Like how many
Right.
cards? Like there's so many one original Ravnica. There's a bunch of cool ones like Lorwyn and like Alara. There are so many cool cards that could be reimagined. Even like um somebody was recently talking about how the ultimatums from Alara are not nearly as powerful as the ultimatums we got on Ikoria. Like, what if we reimagined some of those ultimatums and brought them to Historic? Like,
And
all
Cruel Ultimatum was pretty good.
yeah, sorry, but some of the other ones were not. That was the one
The other
people
ones
played.
were, yeah,
To be
not
fair,
inspiring.
in Ikoria, people played Emergent Ultimatum mainly, and then all the Teamer one as well. Um, but
Yeah.
but
The
yeah,
other
it's
ones, like, I think you'd see them once in a blue moon kind of thing.
you'd
But
see the Mardu one.
the Teamer one had its time in the sun, but it
Mhm,
was
yeah,
really the Sultai one.
yeah, and that's still played. So, but like this is what I'm saying about like why make more cards when you can take old cards? Like it I, I understand that like there's a huge design space for a lot of things. You can do a lot of stuff, and digital only designs does explore a huge space that they haven't explored yet. So they're trying to look at it, but like the things they're coming up with are, I don't know, fairly boring and like easy. It seems like easily coded. Hey, here's a 4 mana 3/3 that gets a card that you already have installed, so that's easy. Like,
Yeah.
you
It's
just
literally just
right. You just
with
like it doesn't.
tap does whatever's easiest for the developer. Like,
Yeah, that's basically what they're doing. So like you can find other cards that are really interesting that are also easy for the developer that already use modular or already use whatever other mechanics you're looking at. Old ninjutsu cards or like we could get Haigure and like Ink Eyes, or like you can go anywhere and like find cool cards that just didn't get there and like rebalance them just a little bit, you know?
yeah,
So
I love that. That would be a really cool format. And the thing that's interesting to me is like if I were a designer, I would love that challenge of
right.
take an iconic card
Mm-hmm.
that was either too good or not quite good enough and fix it
Mm-hmm.
and like
Right.
put a new spin on it, you know, like um I would love I would love
Yeah.
that rather than like design some new card that you know uses the new set mechanic and for some reason it's also going to have a spell book.
And then
So
there's
please choose the spell book and
mhm. And then
like
like originally, like I'm glad you brought up the spell books because we didn't talk about it earlier, but like the idea of drafting 3 cards from a 50 card spell book that's like a booster pack. Sure. The idea that like the card stays the same but the spell book could change was interesting to me. I don't know if they've really done that. I think they did maybe a couple tweaks on some spell books, but for the most part, it's just like draw it always like Key to the Archive was always like play Key to the Archive, go get Time Walk or Time
It's
Warp,
always, yeah, it's
and
always time walk.
so you get that, and you get like Approach of the Second Sun. It's like that's what it always, like every time my opponent played that, I'm like, all right, well they're gonna take an extra turn soon because that's what they drew. Like I just know they drew it. Like that's just what happens.
Yeah.
And it's just not like putting the barrier behind like, hey, here's a really powerful card, but you won't get it for a while. Like that bird, like something of the alpha that would like put a bunch of Moxen in your deck, or the Power 9 goes in your deck or something. It's like, yeah, but I don't know. Why don't you just give us fixed powerful cards? Like
Right.
it just it's obviously I'm not talking about
And
the
at the same
Moxen,
time,
but like
no need to
yeah.
fix time walk. You've tried that a million times and you never
Mhm.
fix it. So
Yeah, taking an extra turn. You know, of all those things, like I think the most fixed time walk would be like it's 2 mana and like the spell literally says like you can't cast this past turn 3. You know, it's
Mhm.
like this time walk literally says it's like explore, draw a card, play a land,
It's explore.
and that's what you can do. And like that's your
It's
fixed
actually
time walk.
worse than explore
Hmm.
because
You can't
explore
even
you
play
can
it
do
later.
later.
Yeah. So like that, and most of the time when people play time walk, that's what they're doing anyway. Like in formats that can play time walk, it's basically just
Yeah.
like, okay, I draw another card and I play a land.
It's just like it's explore that has the upside of like sometimes I just win because I have
Yeah,
a planeswalker or something and it's
yeah,
dumb.
or a
Yeah.
but like that's the kind of stuff I'm more interested in. I'm not interested in a card that fetches me a copy of a card I own that's a real Magic card.
Isn't there one that like conjures like a tropical island or something?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Oh yeah, it
it's
was a
like
merfolk. Oh
it's a
yeah, the
merfolk.
cool thing was that it likes you having a forest and then it gives you the
Yeah, so
forest. But it's like
yeah. It's basically just like your turn one play that like fixes your mana, um, and it just adds consistency in a very boring way. You know,
right.
like it seems kind of cool because you're like, oh, a dual land, but then like when you play that deck, it's just like you just get to immediately fix your mana
I don't
because
I don't feel like I'm playing with tropical island, right? Like,
yeah.
and that's kind of what they're trying to sell is, ooh, this is what it feels like to play Legacy. It's like, well,
Hmm.
not really, because I have to play Merfolk and
Yeah,
I have to, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It's so. Also, with that being said, fucking, I don't know. Does this break the reserve list? Like, can we now put reserve list cards on in Arena on Historic? Like,
yeah, I mean, come on,
is that
you got to be able to.
is that part of the no printing thing? Like, come on. Like,
Is me putting like a crappy version of Black Lotus where you have to pay 5 mana to activate it? Is that really gonna lower the price of your alpha pristine condition Black Lotus, or
yeah,
can we chill?
or like maybe pay half your life or something. You know, something
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like,
I would love that. I'll
yeah,
do that. No questions asked. I'll
yeah,
pay half my life for Black
exactly.
Lotus.
Like,
That's when you know a card might be too strong. I wouldn't
hmm,
even consider it
hmm,
if you're like, if what if I had to pay half your life to this and be like, no problem.
no problem, do
Like,
it.
I'm still interested.
Yeah, I guess maybe we would really have to say pay 10 life. Then
Yeah.
there's an issue because half.
I'm still planning on doing it on turn one, so it's the
Mhm.
same.
But like I don't know. Like, do you want people to play Historic Brawl and Historic? These are the like if you want push cards, you have push cards. You have them. Just like put them in the game. Like getting
Yeah.
people. I think it just to me it seems far more difficult to spend the resources to make new cards to get people excited about those new cards to put in Historic instead of just being like, hey, remember that card you thought was really cool once? Here you go. Or, I don't know, make weird fucking shit. I don't know. it, again, Mercadian Max cards. Put something like that in there. I don't know. Try a Rebels thing. Throw that in there. Like it will have a weird thing with changelings. Like
Right. They've always
do
done such weird things with the historic anthologies. It's like
yeah. They
we're
already
give you one playable card and then a few cards that are clearly for historic brawl, and then a bunch of like WTF question marks where you're confused as to why this is here.
yeah.
Like,
Like there I don't know. There are cards that could be great, and I think that adding fetch lands and wasteland and like Gaia's Cradle are like the things that would be interesting.
hey
You
man,
know?
if they really go all in on historic being the format where land destruction is just okay, I might play it.
That's something I'm
Like we
super
have
stoked
Stone
on.
Rain that
Yeah,
we're
we're already
they
trying to
already
play
let me do
Ponza.
Atlanta War Elves into Stone Rain. So
Yeah, this is what we're the arena regulars is all about. So
yeah,
um,
give me Armageddon and I'll consider it.
this is the direction I want us to move. And the
Yeah.
digital only aspect of Magic that is exciting is rebalancing cards. I think the making new ones is less exciting to me because I can't even think of one that was super worth it. Like even when I was playing it, like the reason I liked any of the cards were because they were pushed. Like I was like, yeah, I like playing this card because it costs 3 mana, and every time I discard a card, I draw the same card. So yeah, it makes all my
Right.
cards that say
So
loot
very
or
good.
or rummage. I just draw two instead. Like
Yeah.
obviously, but
And then there was like those cards that you uh specialized by discarding,
mm-hmm,
right? It's just like this is all just so dumb. Like
mm-hmm,
everything has this big drawback of discarding a card, and then this one friggin'
yeah,
mythic just comes in and turbo powers your deck.
yeah. So it's just like it's it's not what I was hoping. Thank you all for staying with us through this entire rant, um, because these are things that we do want to talk about. We just it always feels like it's too too against what we want to do and what we do want to put out there. But we do have these feelings, and we do have really interesting ideas. I think we have good ideas to fix this. Like it could be
Yeah,
really
or
cool.
like we could at least provide perspective on, it maybe just historic and alchemy aren't for us. Maybe they do have a loyal player base that love the way it
That's
is.
true.
I feel like that's not necessarily the case. I think Wizards is just trying to like fight this uphill battle. People don't really love it, um, but kind of play it when they have to if Wizards forces them to in these events. And I'm sure there definitely are people that love the formats, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of big followings,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we play a ton of arena, and we know we would like, so definitely we have some ideas on what these formats could have been. um I like tune in, I just pulled up a tier list for historic because I haven't been playing a lot, and you see Azorius Affinity. Cool. Is it Wizards Rakdos Goblins? I love that. I like having um tribal decks actually be good. That's like a change of pace. Wizards and goblins, fine. Affinity, okay. I mean, so far all three of those I kind of think of as aggro decks. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Rakdos Goblins is like aggro control or combo kind of thing. Then guess what else is a tier one deck? Rakdos Midrange. Just in case you weren't clear that red black midrange has been pretty good since the printing of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Guess what's rearing its head here? And if I click this, I haven't clicked this yet, but I have a feeling there's going to be a card that I was recently introduced to at a nice big 4x in this deck as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. It's loading. 4x Crucius Titan of the Waves, of course, because it's just a dumb red-black card. So it's just like exactly like Alchemy, for Fable, for Crucius, other
Yeah.
shit. Like I guess you have Seasoned Pyromancer in this. Unbelievably, they're playing Shieldred. That can't be right. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the same deck. And so it's like, at what point do you say, guys, Fable was a mistake? Like, I like Fable. I think it's a fun card. Everybody missed it.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to blame the designers for making this card being like this so obviously good. Or anyone who does that is probably lying, because most people missed that Fable was busted in the spoiler season.
Hmm.
And it took us a couple of weeks, but we know it now. Are we not allowed to react now? Why must this card dominate every single format? It's in Pioneer. Obviously, it's an Explorer top deck. It's now in Historic, a top tier deck. It's in Alchemy. It's in Standard. I'm pretty sure it's in Legacy. Like, definitely showing up in Modern. At one point, are we just like, hey guys, maybe people don't want to play against this card every other game. Should we
Hmm.
do something about it?
Yeah.
And it just feels like Historic and Alchemy are where you can so easily do something about it.
Yeah. Make it 4
That's,
mana.
in Standard you have to ban it,
Like,
right? Like,
yeah. Like there's a lot of things. Make it a 1/1. Make it only make treasures when they hit the opponent. Like
yeah,
there are so many things you can do. And
make it cost 2 to copy something. Like, this has so
mhm,
many knobs to turn. Make it only rummage away one card of the second. Like,
yeah.
there are just so many things you could change that would be slight tweaks that would go a long way.
Hmm.
I even think making the token a 2/1 goes a long way, because then it's just so much easier to incidentally pick it off, and not like right now the problem is you have to trade a card for the token, otherwise it gets out of hand.
Hmm.
Then they add double rummage, which, fine, they're not up cards, but they're up card quality. And then you have to trade a card for the Fable itself, so you just always feel like you're getting 2 for 1 plus a little bit.
Hmm.
And that's a best case scenario. That's if you kill the token right away and you are able to kill the
Fable,
Kikijiki right
yeah.
away.
Yeah.
If either of those takes an extra turn, you're gonna lose the game, because like now they are up mana on top of 2 for 1ing you, or they're everyone knows what happens if Kikijiki is not killed
Hmm.
immediately. So it's like such ridiculously high floor and such a ridiculously high ceiling that it's like we just got to pull this down a little bit. And if I could just play something and ping down the token, that would just
Hmm.
I play something that pings it, like, yes, there we go. Now I feel like I'm just not getting owned by this thing.
Yeah.
um,
Also, like, what if it flips into a legendary creature? You know, like it actually flips into like Kiki-Jiki.
it's true. The
Obviously,
first
it's
time
a
I saw the Kikijikis copying themselves for the win, I was like,
yeah.
they can't have intended that it works
This
this
is
way.
yeah.
Like,
It's like, oh sweet, you just get two of the same card and like you win the game because of it. Like
and there's
that's
pretty much nothing the opponent could do short of like a board sweeper, because whatever you target, I'm just gonna like. I mean, you can try to make me. You can hold up mana and try to make me act first, but I'll just
mhm.
untap. Like, I have 2 hasty Kikijikis now. Um, yeah, it's a
It's
bit of a ridiculous combo. Just to go even more ridiculous on this card, like, it didn't need that interaction.
mhm. Yeah, it really didn't. And like it is funny that like I think you're right because even the 2/1 token, at least you can trade one of your like wedding announcement citizens for it or
Right.
guests. I know they're not citizens, but whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and like being able to trade 1 for 1 with that with your also good like enchantment
Exactly. Yeah.
would end up being like a better situation for at least those matchups to be like more interesting. So I don't know. I think you're right with Kiki. The one thing I will say about that we are getting a bunch of new cards that they're just like. So we talked about Alchemy and Historic. I was trying to wrap up the episode a little bit, but I do want to quickly talk about this before we go away. Is that the Lord of the Rings set is coming out in June, and that's another reason why Alchemy is definitely not just standard because it already had the Lord of the Dungeons and Dragons set from or the Commander Legends thing from last summer, and now this summer, Alchemy is also getting Lord of the Rings as well as Historic is getting Lord of the Rings. So the one thing I will say about that set is that it just looks fun and cool as so far. Everything I've seen, and I've read this online too. I think it's kind of like, I think Shivim Bot, he was saying this on Twitter as well. So I'm going to kind of copy his words, but he was saying it feels more on power level with AFR than it does with Modern Horizons, which is probably a good thing for Universes Beyond set. Just being like, hey, Frodo isn't going to be this busted card that everyone has to play in their like legacy deck, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy to see that.
Just excited for the flavor mostly. I don't even care if the cards are good. If like they tell a good story about that character or whatever, that's gonna be awesome.
And so that like power level makes me excited to draft it as long as it's not fucked with in on Arena, and then maybe play something in Historic or something. But like I still have my stance of let's get other cards in Historic that have already been printed. I want to play some things. I mean, obviously not Dredge or really. They have some Storm cards, but like, I don't know. Let's get some old stuff in there. That's also like just bridge the gap, man. Hey, new players are learning about these cards for the first time. Old players are teaching you what they used to do. Let's get it together. Like, why do we have to try to separate everybody? We need more communion. So anyway, I think that's what I have to say about Historic. Do you have any last thoughts before we go to last call?
Yeah, I just want to say that after thinking about this episode, I realized that these two formats that sort of dumpster fire is the word we keep using, but it's what they are. Like, they veered so far from their original intention and feel like they just kind of snowballed and landed in a place where they are. But they were both attempts to fix, quote unquote, an issue with Standard. So there's like the long, this has been around forever issue with Standard since its inception, which is rotation. Rotation makes it fun and interesting and fresh, but at the same time, Magic cards aren't cheap, and it's a bummer that you buy these sweet cards and then they rotate. You can't use them. Historic was meant to fix that. It didn't do it. Well, it sort of like was too early, and so they had to pivot really hard. So it's a unique situation, but didn't do it. And then Alchemy was meant to fix a slightly more recent problem. It's probably always been there, but just the staleness of Standard. But I say it's more recent because like formats get solved fast now, whereas back in the day, it'd probably be months and months, and you'd still be finding new decks, and you'd still go to a tournament and be like, oh man, that's a cool deck that this person's playing, and it's really good. Now it's like everybody's tried everything. There's been millions of matches in the first week, and it looks like Grixis is still the best kind of thing. And so Alchemy came in to try to fix that, and it just also didn't work. Mostly, I think on this one, they just didn't stick to their guns and what it's supposed to be doing, and they got greedy. But the formats that I like and that have been successful, we're trying to address like just build a format that people wanted, not like try to scoop up players who didn't like something about something else kind of thing. Like Pioneer was just, hey, like we need something to bridge the gap between Standard and Modern. People have been asking for this for a long time. They even went and made their own format because we weren't doing it. It was called Frontier for people who don't remember that. And then they said, what do they not want? They hate fetch lands. They don't want fetch lands in it. What sets should we start with? Well, they don't like, they like these sets. They don't like this one. What if we just pre-ban fetch lands and then take these sets? And Pioneer is a fun format that led to Explorer. So I think if they just did a little more of like, let's build a format that we know the players want from the ground up, instead of like, oh, we have this problem, let's try to just slap something on it that fixes it. It's like, oh, now that has two more problems, and let's slap band-aids on that to fix it. And it's like, they just approached alchemy in the wrong way, I think, or historic, where they just didn't think that far ahead. We have this issue now. Let's create a whole format to fix it, and then they're forever putting out fires. Whereas they really took their time with Pioneer, but it's looks like it's a format, and it's had its trials, right? Especially during
Mm-hmm.
COVID, but it looks like it's a format that has just stood the test of time because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which makes me even more excited for Pioneer to just get on Arena already. I know you've liked the kind of interim with Explorer, but because
I
we
do,
kind of
man.
because we have this like jockeying back and forth between like what is Explorer and Historic and people being confused, like I just want all of Pioneer on Arena. The sad news about that honestly is that in one of their most recent updates, they said that as far as projects go to get remastered sets on Arena, Shadows is the last one. They had done no work on the Battle for Zendikar block and with the Gatewatch. So
We just skip that one and just ban it from Pioneer. Let's go the other way. Like, who's gonna want
just
to spend all the time to code those shitty cards into Explorer? Let's
yeah.
just friggin' ban them in Pioneer, and that'll be the way we make the two lineup.
I mean, like as soon as they do like triple cons drafts on Arena, like that's gonna get people excited. So
I'm there for it.
I think they should keep plugging along and really put all the cards, get all the cards on Arena. We don't like, they're kind of trying to wiggle their way out and say, like, well, 95% of the cards that people play are on Arena, that kind of thing. It's like, there also would be the situation where, like, people can't brew because there aren't cards and they can't see if they're good.
Right.
And the best way to do that is on Arena because you can play a million matches by yourself. So you kind of got to put the cards on the
I have to,
platform. Yeah.
starting with Dubious Challenge.
They missed that one. Yeah. They probably won't come back for it. But yeah, for your sake, I do want Dubious Sellers to be on there. So, um,
One day.
one day. Anyway, those are all of our thoughts on Alchemy and Historic, mainly our bad ones, but we did have some normal, I mean, not normal ideas, but like those are ideas. We've had them for a while. So this isn't
Mhm.
something that's extremely new to a lot of you, but it was just nice to kind of sit down and like actually go through it. So anyway, Jeff, let's talk about some beer and get away from the magic for just a little bit. We're going to last call. We have a couple beer straight this evening. We got a purple can, we got a blue can, we got a purple beer and a regular colored beer, I guess. As always, we rate all of our beers just like the tiers in Arena. That is bronze to mythic. Uh, just a disclaimer, this has nothing to do with whatever tier you are currently in right now. So there's no reason to feel bad if we are trashing your tier. Whatever you're in, they don't super matter anymore. If you're trying to get mythic numbers, that's amazing. And I'm so happy for you. But, we have some great events that we can qualify for tournaments in different ways. So we don't have to do that anymore. Uh, with that being said, bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to throw them down the drain and spit them out because you just can't drink this anymore.
Yeah, silver beers are just not super interesting. This is basically where macro brews land.
Gold beers are fine, but you won't probably drink them again.
Platinum, one step up, it's solid. You'll drink it again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You really like these beers and you show them to your friends.
And Mythic, these are the best of the best. You would recommend this to anyone who will listen. You'll go out of your way to buy them. This is just your favorite beer.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Jeff. I mean, I know which one I'm going to pick. Which one are you going to pick? I think I
Yeah.
know. Alrighty, here we go. No surprises tonight. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Blueberry crumble. Yeah. Um, let's talk about mine first because we're drinking it.
Yeah.
So I obviously like this one. I liked it enough to bring it to the show. It's purple. I always love making you drink purple beers. And It is like the thing is, I like when these beers say all these random words that you don't enjoy, but they actually make sense. We're like
Uh-huh.
if I tasted this and said, "Oh, like pastry sour is actually a good example of whatever this is," because I can totally feel that taste that's in it. Like I understand what they're trying to explain when they say the pastry sour,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good word to use for it. The blueberries there, it is sour, and it's extremely desserty and exactly the kind of beer that you would not want because it doesn't taste like beer.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I always wonder with stuff like that, like, would I have picked that up or would I have said that if it wasn't on the can?
That's
Blueberry
true.
crumble
Mm-hmm.
pastry sour. I think I might have said definitely tastes like blueberry,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason it tastes a little buttery as well, or
Mm-hmm.
something like
Yeah.
that, right? Like the pastry to me is coming in as like buttery,
Yeah.
which traditionally to me means the beer isn't made well. Because
Oh.
it's like for people who don't
Right.
know homebrewing that well, like you can get a buttery flavor if you basically fuck up. But it doesn't taste like that buttery flavor. It literally just kind of tastes like butter. So I would know that it's, and know Collective Arts isn't gonna just give me a beer that they they totally
That they fucked
biffed.
up. Yeah.
But yeah, like because they told me it was meant to be a quote unquote pastry or taste like a blueberry crumble, I think I get it. I don't know if like I think that's fun, but then I'm like, if they didn't tell me that, and I just thought this was a sour, would I be like, why is it so buttery? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
would I like it, or am I just like acknowledging that it tastes like what they said and being like, good job?
It is interesting because I wonder if they went out seeking this flavor profile, or they made a beer and tasted it, and then they were like, "Oh, there kind of is a little there's a little butteriness
I
in
think you're.
that." I
I'm not hearing.
wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't? Did something go wrong with your? Yeah,
Okay. Say
maybe.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? That's
My
not working.
headphones just my headphones just cut out, and I'm not sure why, but I hear you now.
Okay, perfect. We fixed the problem. But anyway, Jeff, what rating would you get or give the blueberry pastry crumble?
I think this is a classic scenario that we run into often. I
Hmm.
think technically this is gold for me because I
Yeah.
don't think I will drink it often. But like I would recommend this to somebody who's looking for something fun. They like sours. I'd be like, oh, like Collective Arts has this fun blueberry crumble one
Hmm.
that you might like if you're
Yeah.
into that kind of thing. So uh, I'll give it gold, but there's like a caveat that I acknowledge. It's well made and it tastes like what it says, which
Yeah.
is always a nice like bonus for these types of things. The biggest pet peeve, the worst thing that brewery can do is tell me what I'm supposed to taste, and then I just don't get it.
Hmm.
And
That's
then I'm
true.
like mad at, I don't know, am I fucking up? Are you fucking up?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Silver.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Or it tastes like water and so silver. Um,
Yeah.
of course, with that being said, this is diamond for me because
Mhm.
you know, I like the beer. I'm going to recommend it to people, even if they don't like sours, because I think it's fun and interesting. And it doesn't have the super sour taste that I get frustrated with, where it's like every beer just tastes the same because it just hurts your tongue. So this one has a nice bit of stuff going on. So a little bit different some other sours I've had in the past. Let's go to Drifter, the hazy pale
Oh.
ale. Jeff, your beer. What do you like about that?
Um, yeah, this kind of tasted like a little bit like a mini Mad Tom to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a little less like sort of punchy in the mouth kind of flavor, a little less alcohol. Kind of feels like they just toned down Mad Tom a little bit. Um, and I like Mad Tom, so this hit kind of well for me. Um, yeah, I liked it. I think the last one we had that was like a juicy or whatever. I didn't like as much. So for me, this one maybe ends up in the middle of there's the three. There's the Mad Tom and the juicy Mad Tom. The hazy Mad Tom's like in the middle. I think that's kind of how I felt about this one.
Yeah, I agree. I remember the other one that you're talking about, and it's funny, kind of going back to another episode that we had tasted the hazed and confused. I think that one was called.
Yes.
Um, so Drifter, I like this one a lot actually,
Yeah.
and for me, I actually don't drink Mad Tom that often. I think I like Twice as Mad the most, but this one might maybe like a little bit more than Mad Tom. I would see this around, and I've never tried it before, and I did really enjoy this. I already like hazy IPAs, so or pale ale, sorry. So this works out quite well. Uh, I it was like high platinum probably for me. I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to drink it again, and it could possibly creep up over the years if it becomes like a staple. But I was pretty happy with it. Like it felt easy drinking enough that I could like have a few of these and be like, you know what, I like it. I can stay with this one for a long time. I just got my
Totally.
MO now,
I
so
think it was a really good idea for them to make this because a lot of people will like this better than Mad Tom, right? Because um, it's just a little less intense, but still
exactly.
showcasing a lot of the same nice flavors.
Yes, definitely tasty and flavorful. So
yeah, high platinum for me as well. Where with the caveat that like this could end up being low diamond. I think for me, it's most likely I'll just keep going with Mad Tom though, or Twice as Mad, like you mentioned. Oof, need to grab
yeah,
one of those.
so good. Whenever I see them, I usually try to grab them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Jeff, it's time for closing time. It's been a long episode of ranting and raving, and I loved it. But
Right.
we got to cut it off at some point. If you ever want to talk to us about our rantings and our ravings, you can find us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, you may also find us on MTG Arena itself, probably not in the Alchemy or Historic queues, but will be under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg, that is ZeulBerg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
You can find me on the Discord channel. I go by Regular Jeff, and if you want a link to that channel, it's in the show notes.
It sure is. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Go to Spotify, follow us there, and leave us a review. Go to our YouTube channel, check out the video of this, see our smiling faces, and leave us a comment. Hit subscribe and do all those normal things. They actually help out us as like a small podcast a lot. So all of your words of encouragement are really helpful to grow the podcast and everything, and help us keep doing what we're doing. This has been the Arena Regulars,
reminding you that the next remastered set coming to MTG Arena is Mercadian Masks.
Good night. All right, that's fine.